3.5 days, if I remember well, in February. I think Hendrik will also come back to that, how to become an expert in this new project economy and strategy implementation. So this is something that he will provide you as well after the session, but this is part of that program. Just to give you a highlight, I do believe that these are kind of essential skills that we need to develop to be successful in the future. So the project economy, there's two big trends. One is macro, which is meaning we're going to see many projects after every crisis. There was a crisis in 2008, financial, you see massive amount of projects coming into the economy, into society, just to rebuild it. So, and there has never been a crisis like the COVID. So we're expecting trillions of projects, trillions of money being put into different parts of the world. So that needs to be managed by project leaders, project managers, professionals. And I don't think there's enough of them. So I think that's one of the opportunities. The second part is the way work is carried out in organizations. If you look at your own business, 50, 60 years ago, most of the work was operational. Most people will have a function there, will do the same thing for 20 years, promote, go through the career path, but always around the same function. If it's marketing, you just grow within marketing. If it's finance, you grow within finance. There was not too much around projects and change. There was no need. The world was kind of stable. If you look at backwards, it was very stable. The strategies would last 9 years. Today, there's no strategy that lasts 9 months. So the speed of change has accelerated. Another big thing is that we've managed to make operations very efficient. So we do much more today with less people. We produce much more volumes with less people, which produce cheaper with less people than 10, 20, 30 years ago. So what's happening is there's a shift of the resources, the employees, the type of work. There's less and less people in operations, and there's much more people working project-based. When I talk about projects, I don't talk about the traditional project that we all know. Project for me is a big word. It's any type of change initiative. Some projects might be agile initiatives, some might be strategic, some might be programs, some might be just continuous improvement. For me, that's the whole package. I call it projects. It's around change. So it's a higher level. So what you see is that more and more people are working project-based. And it depends in which industry. In banking, for example, where artificial intelligence, robots, machines are already doing most of the operations, most of the people are moving into agile teams and project-based work. So that's what I call the project economy, meaning a lot of projects around the world and a lot of changes in the way we do projects and the work carry out work. So if you look at the two worlds, these are two kind of different business models. There's one business model which was structured for a world driven by efficiency. Is that blue part that we see in the past. That was a world driven by efficiency. So how can we be the most efficient in the world? How can we produce fast, cheap, and with high volumes? So that's how you set up a company. The period is today, we deliver today. The objectives are usually about revenues and survival. The culture is very important in the world driven by efficiency. It's about command, control, and discipline. The plans, companies have operational plans, yearly operating plans, business plans. The KPIs tend to be commercial. The skills, what kind of skills, what do you want in your team when you're talking about efficiency? It's deep expertise. You want deep finance experts, deep operations experts, deep logistics experts. That's where they play. Generalists like project managers are not so much welcome. They don't have a career path in that left world. Key role in this world driven by efficiency, chief operating officer. Remember, this is going to be the end of that role very soon. That's my prediction. We don't need chief operating officers anymore. Finance journey planning. I think I want to take your attention to the last part of this box, is the structure. So you can see here the structure Uh, Silos, it's boxes, bureaucracy, boxes, hierarchy. This was great. This worked very well in a world driven by efficiency, where operations was the primary and where the goal was production, efficiency, low cost. So yes, that was great. But if we move to the other side and you see a world driven by change, which is, I think, where we need to, we're moving very, very fast, faster than what we thought. The objectives are more about a purpose and a vision. You don't need the culture of command and control. You need entrepreneurship, collaboration, innovation. The plans are, you cannot have operating plans. There's no operations. It's done by machines. So you will have strategic roadmaps. This is a big change. The skills, we're moving into deep generalist. This is where we play, not the way we've seen project management so far, or program management. But yeah, in a world driven by change, you don't need so much the technical experts. And besides, we have trillions of technical experts, because universities, that's what they produce, technical experts in one field. We need people who can connect the dots, and who can work transversally, and who can understand strategy, but the details too. So I think there has never been a better timing for project managers. Be careful, I'm talking about a new way of project management that I will just briefly touch upon today. But I think the role of the CEO, dead. I'm writing on that, is dead. We don't need operations. There might be chief data officer, because there's a lot of technology, but the driving role in a world driven by change is the chief project officer, or chief change officer, or the chief strategy implementation. So this is happening very slowly. It might go fast, but that's my projection. And then you see here the network, the structure. So that's also an important point, because maybe many of you know the role of the PMO, the project management office. If you think about how we learned the role of the PMO, was a structure or a governance for the left side. The PMO was another box in a hierarchy. So the way we know the PMOs is dead too, is dead. We don't want hierarchical structure. They don't work. So we need to invent the role of the PMO too. And I think it's a big shift towards the right, but we still need to manage the left. So I think the challenge when we're talking about implementation is, how can you twist the balance from efficiency to change while keeping the efficiency? So this is one of the biggest challenges in implementation. Sorry. So that's a bit setting the scene, and why I think it's important that we think about the world in a different way. So a lot of projects, lots of project work, this is great, but our performance is poor. It's quite poor. If you look at any research around project implementation, strategic initiatives, strategy implementation, it's really poor. It's about 35% only. From 10 projects, 3.5 succeed. We fail in 6.5 projects. This is crazy. This is amazing. So the amount of project work is 48 trillion average, but you're wasting a huge amount of that. Just imagine for a second that you go to a hospital and you say, well, 7 out of 10 operations will fail. Sorry, we're learning, and yeah, we have methods, but we're not great, and 7 will die on the way. That's okay. No, that's not okay. Or imagine you take a plane, these things which we don't do anymore, but 7 out of 10 flights collapse. This is what we're doing today. So something has to change dramatically in project management. And projects. And again, the bigger picture, I'm talking agile projects too. So it's the big picture, but we need to do better. This is not acceptable. So my big challenge for the senior leaders and CEOs and future leaders and project people is, what if we increase the project success by 30%? What if we do 6 out of 10 projects right? According to my calculations, we will add 1 full GDP of China every year on value. Imagine, just by doing the right projects, they're doing the projects right. It's not about we need more money. Money is there. We just need to do it better. And I think we have to take that ownership. So I think there's huge things to do. I will talk about what we need to reinvent, why we need it, and what are the major pitfalls. I've been researching a lot, and I can confess here, I know the session is recording, but we're under friends. I've done wrong. I've been 25 years in projects, PMOs, director of PMO portfolio management, and I've done many mistakes that I thought they were the right thing to do. So I will share that. I think these mistakes are general in the profession of projects implementation change. The methods are way too complex, and I'm going to explain what I mean with each of them. Sorry. I think we've considered often ideas, and once an idea is shared, then we just start with a project, and that's very wrong. You cannot make a project out of an idea. When the idea is too early in the phase, is still in the ideation, never will work. I think this is one of the biggest issues I've seen is one methodology for all type of projects. I'm going to explain that too. And then we've ignored IT and technology in the area of projects. We still use massive projects with MS Project, which is just an Excel with charts. How can you run a business with Excel and charts? We're doing that for projects. So I think these are at least 4. There's a bit more, but I'm just going to focus on this one. So taking out of the world of projects and change, if we look at successful management theories, Henrik, you know this. If we talk about strategy, what's the theory that comes to mind? Michael Porter, 5 forces, 5 things. And you can discuss strategy of your business, of your country with 5 elements. You don't need to be a PhD in strategy or a McKinsey or a Bain consultant. We can talk today about strategy in this group. If we talk about product and launches and marketing strategies, marketing plans, you can have Kotler. Kotler has the 7 Ps. The same, we could discuss right now in this hour and define a good plan for a marketing product. If you look at the business concept and a business model, you have the canvas. Business model canvas from Alex Osterwald and Yves Pignon. 9 building blocks. That's it, 9. Agile was very successful, mostly because it was simple. 4 concepts or core values, 12 principles. You could see that in 2 slides. But let's look then into project management. What do you have? What do we have today? We have the project management body of knowledge. There's other guys from Prince 2 and IPMA. But let me tell you next, if you look at the size of the body of knowledge in project management, where these are exponential. Look at the number of pages. The last version of the PMI body of knowledge, 6th edition, has 756 pages. And it doesn't include the Agile Guide, which gets to 1,000. And you have similar in others. So I do think the PMBOK is great for professionals, for people who want to certify and become 100% dedicated and become the experts. But there's 95% of the people working in projects who don't want to be experts, who don't want to certify, but they want to understand the basics. So do we think that any of these 95% people working in your projects, including the executives, are going to read the PMBOK? Never, ever in life will do that. They will just not even open. They will not, it's scary. I doubt many of the PMs have read that. You cannot read a book of 1,000 pages. Yeah, so I think this is one of the issues. There's people working in projects. There's massive amount of people working in projects, but we don't have a tool to share like the 5 forces where we can sit all together and discuss the project. So my work and my research has been focused on that part. Big part was simplification, simplification, simplification. How can we make sure that that 95 of stakeholders and people in your teams and your senior executives and the board and understands projects and we can discuss. So I've developed this project canvas, kind of inspired by Alex and Yves. I know Alex and Yves, so I'm lucky that I could discuss this with them and say, listen, Alex, if you know projects and there's no canvas, can we do one? I want to do that. So I changed with them, and I managed to compress 756 pages in one slide, 14 dimensions, 4 big domains. Why are we doing the project? And I think what we've all learned, that a project needs to start with a business case. That is completely wrong. Yes, another thing that we learned wrong, the project needs to start with the why. Why are we doing the project? It's the purpose that matters. Nobody gets excited, motivated by a 10% return on investment. That's what we tried to do so far for 40 years. Make the business case the most important thing of your project. I'm not saying it's not important. Of course, we want to know the return, but that's not exciting anybody except the shareholders, maybe the CFO. People want to know why we're developing the vaccine. We want to develop the vaccines. Who cares about the return on investment? Some people, but not most. We want to become a greener company. That's what matters, not so much the return on investment. So I think I insist a lot on the why. The who is absolutely focused on the executive sponsor, something that they don't know often the role, and they've not been trained. So we need to train them. 30% of the success of a project depends on that box, executive sponsor. And we cannot expect that they know it. We've seen for years that they don't know their role. So for me, it's essential that we switch our approach, and first thing we do is, after we define the purpose, we go and chase the executive sponsor and we coach them. I'm saying we need to coach the sponsor, and we need to train them. And we need to tell them, sponsor, if you're not ready to support this project, I'm not going to do this project. It's not going to work. You're wasting your time, I'm wasting my time, we're wasting the company resources. So that's important. Then what you see in the what, how, and when, these are just classic things. There's just one small difference. I put change management for those who know these knowledge areas instead of communication. I think nowadays communication is not enough. For any projects, any change initiative is around engaging people, is around change management techniques. So, and then where projects are not islands. You don't do a project and it's an island and it's perfect. No, projects are part of an ecosystem, of an organization, politics, priorities. So the better we understand that part, the better we can manage. I'm sharing with you, so I had this is from my book, The Project Revolution. And Alex said, come on, Antonio, this is 14 areas. We have 9 building blocks for a business model. You're just talking about a simple project. Can you not reduce? And it was very difficult for me. I think we're so deep into these concepts, and there's so much sticked in their mind that it's hard to just take out of them. So after a lot of discussions, I've come up with a new canvas. This is coming next year, but I share with you. Canvas with 9 concepts, 9 building blocks, 3 dimensions. What you see in purple is the foundation. So the foundation of the project is the rationale, the investment, and the benefits. The people side, which is the green part, the sponsorship, the skills and resources, the team, and the stakeholders. And then the creation. So foundation, people, and creation. So we have the outputs, the deliverables, the approach for the implementation, and all what goes with the change. I've used it with some cases. This is the reconstruction of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, Paris. According to my research, this project will be successful. It's very interesting because they have a fixed deadline. They already have set the deadline for, I think it's 2024. If I remember well, you can see it there. But it's well done. The executive sponsor is the Prime Minister. President Macron has set up a solid team behind. So everything seems to be well-founded. So I would say this project is more likely to be successful. It's just to share a bit. The good thing about this canvas is that you can use it for agile projects too, because every agile project needs to have a purpose. They need to have an investment. They need to have a benefit, sponsorship, skills. Just what difference is the project plan, the approach. We'll use agile approach. We'll have different type of outputs, but you can use it also to assess agile projects. So just to share, like I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you where I'm working, what's coming next, or even more simplification and more alignment between things. I've created the project Manifesto, which I hope we can launch next year. In a project, in a world driven by project, in a world driven by change, in the project economy, we need a project manifesto. There's an agile manifesto. Why don't we have a project manifesto? So I've put it there in LinkedIn. There's a lot of comments. I need to just find time to adjust this and then get some in the world to get endorsement from people and sign it off. But we will have a manifesto soon. The other big issue that we see all the time is, when is a project a project? Do you know, do we know when an idea is ready to be a project? There's no technique for it. And I think about 70% of the projects, according to one of the research, projects start when we don't have the experience. We're at the bottom of the S-curve. I think you all know the concept of the S-curve. At the beginning, we don't have a clue. We're learning, and then we start to master, we engage, and then we're masters. Most of the projects start too early. That's one of the problems. So trying to make a plan, a cost estimate on a project or an idea, which is too early, it's failure. It's failure. You're wrong 100% every time. So why don't we investigate? Why don't we spend more time in the ideation? Why do we have a rush to rush ideas into projects? This is something that we need to master too. So I'm proposing to have something a bit more structures. I developed an HBR article which has six questions that will give you already a high-level assessment of when is the right time. Is the idea ready to be a project? And the best example for me is this one, the iPhone. The idea of creating a smartphone, it was presented to Steve Jobs in 2001. The project only started in 2004. 3 years of innovation, ideation, prototyping, learning, going through that S-curve. And then Steve Jobs said, yes, now is the time. Now we are formally setting a committed, 100% dedicated project to deliver. And they built the phone in 2 years. 3 years on ideation, 2 years on project implementation. This is what most of the companies don't know how to do. They would spend 1 week or 1 month on innovation, they rush to project, they would spend 10 years just trying to figure out what they want to do. Waste of time, bad projects, terrible execution. Okay, so I think we need to play a bigger role there. One big area that we are also not good is the benefits. So this is an example from Brussels, so a hospital, state-of-the-art hospital, start of construction 2016, completion 2020, 4 years to be completed, quite good. But to my surprise, 2018, Champagne inauguration, 2 years ahead of time. Part of the hospital was operational in 2 years. The other part was still being constructed. This is agile. This is focus on benefits. This is how we should make your plans, not on deliverables and when are we going to finish nicely the building. It's when are we starting to make benefits. 2 years instead of 4? Yes, let's do it. Your plans will be looking very different than what we learned in Nordic project management courses, where you define the scope and then you make a plan and then at the end you start making benefits. This is very different. I always say now we need to learn to plan and make plans on benefits. We're used to make plans on deliverables and outputs, and that's wrong. Nobody cares about that. People care about the benefits. So all your projects should have just a benefit plan. Yeah, when is they going to be the Berlin airport going to be open? If they would have a good plan, we would have not the catastrophe that we've seen in Berlin with the airport. So I think that you can see as a bad case example. This leads to the other big problem that I commit this mistake so many times. I was with a big consulting firm. We were coming to a company and say, your project management is not good. We will develop one methodology that you can use to all your projects. So we were using maybe Prince2 or PMBOK as a basis. And project life cycle, and we'll push all the projects through the same templates and phases. And that is so wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. Every project is different. You cannot have just one hammer to fix all the problems in your house. This is one of the biggest mistakes we've done for many, many years, implementing one methodology to carry all the projects. And then Agile came into the picture. 2001 developed, later on massive in every business, say, well, forget about traditional project management, the waterfall, the predictive, let's go to the iterative. So now it's all Scrum and Agile because it's more fancy, it's more agile, Wrong, completely wrong. Another big mistake. This is not good. So this is part of what I'm developing is depending on the type of change, depending on the type of project, you will use different tools. We need to learn all these tools. We need to learn project management, program management, sometimes mega projects. If you're doing the Olympic Games, fine, that will be high complex, not so much uncertain because we've done it many times, but yes, mega projects is what you need to use. If it's the uncertainty is very high, why would you use project management? That's what we were using for many years, decades. It's wrong. You can never predict a plan or make a plan or an estimate if the uncertainty is very high. Never. We've been doing that for 40 years. That's why so many projects fail. Another big issue is that for low complex projects and low uncertain, why would you use project management? You're just trying to kill a fly with a bazooka. This is wrong. Use just continuous improvement and just focus. So I think this is a big, will be a big revolution. I'm saying every company should have all these techniques and methods and frameworks. And you as a project leader, you need to know them all of them. Maybe you have a strength for one of them, but you should know all of them. And in your projects, you might be using a bit of Agile, a bit of waterfall, a bit of continuous improvement, a bit of program management. So this is, I think, in the future, a big change that we need to think about. I'm just dropping everything. And then technology. How can we run projects with MS Project or Excel or PowerPoints? Yeah. Running the operational part has evolved massively. We have ERP, the SAPs, artificial, but we're still running major projects with MS Project or maybe Primavera, Clarity, but just is very basic. So I think we've ignored the potential use of artificial intelligence in our field. Gartner predicts that this will happen very fast. So 80% of our tasks today as a project manager or PMO are manual, are repetitive, low added value, and that's going to be taken by machines and computers, which I think is great. It's scary because 4 days out of your 5-day weeks will disappear. So you need to show your value in a different way, but it's good. So I'm also developing, I've been in touch with research people and professors who are developing this type of tools for projects, which is, I think, great. It's scary, but great. So I think we need to do a lot in that field as well. And just coming to some kind of last part, and I want to leave enough time to Q&A and comments. I know, Henrik, we probably add something. I think this is one of the biggest disruptions that nobody talks about. We're moving from a world driven by efficiency, where it was about specialization, deep skill, core competencies. We heard that, right? We know that. If you would be a generalist, you didn't have a career. I had that maybe 100 times in my career. And 1,000 times I was repeating that in my head to myself. What are you doing? This is wrong. That's what makes sense. You go through finance, go to marketing, go to strategy, and you'll have a career. You might become the CEO. If you stay as project manager, forget it. You will not grow. That was the reality in a world driven by change. And here's where we play a role. Here's where companies are struggling to find the connections, people who are generalists, who can work cross silos, cross business units, diverse teams, who can connect the dots from a strategic perspective, who can drive the company to the future. around this VUCA world and uncertainty. So I do think that this is a very, very important opportunity that we have, but it requires quite some development. We are ahead of all these technical experts, the people who have been formed to work on the blue world, but I think we need to learn quickly these what I call implementation skills, end-to-end project management skills. I will share with you what I mean with that. But I do think that this is very important. So what I think where we need to develop is basically on the top, you see where we've played for 40 years is on the white part in a project from the initiation. We don't care about the idea. We don't know who took the idea. We don't care. Sometimes they give us the business case. We scope it. We do a plan based on the scope. We estimate, we execute and hand over. We don't care about the benefits, although we say, yes, they're important, but that's part of the ownership later on. And yeah, we just deliver the deliverables and that's it. I think artificial intelligence will take 80% of the white space. And you will see this coming progressively, but in the initiation will be predictability tools who can tell you which project has more chances to succeed. The planning, I'm seeing people creating tools that will make your plan in 5 minutes, not in 5 weeks. Implementation, the scoping as well. So great things. So where do we play a role? In ideation. We'll need to be the referees. We'll need to facilitate innovation. We'll need to tell when an idea is ready to be a project, when an idea is not ready to be a project, when an idea should be used agile methods or lean startup. So we need to learn this design thinking innovation. We need to focus completely 80% on benefits. This is what people care. This is the one matters. So really the sooner, like the hospital, the better. So that's where I think, that's where I say we need to plan on benefits, not on deliverables. And then this is a big question mark. I was trying to find the reason. If anybody knows, tell me. Why every time we finish a project, we run away, we give it to somebody else, and then we start another project? Why have we learned to do that? Why on earth we project managers, who are the people that know more about the project we've built? We've been spending years on that project. We know everything. Why, when it's the moment to run it, to sell it, why do we run away? Why don't we say, listen, I built this organization, I want to run it. I know everything. I know how we came here, I know who's part of it, I know the vision. I want to run it for a few years. Or I've built this product, why cannot sell it? Or I built this website, I want to run it. Why is there a line there? I don't know who put that line, but it's so wrong. It just doesn't make sense. Sometimes it makes sense. Yes, of course, I'm exaggerating a bit, but many times it doesn't make sense. Okay, so I think that's where we'll play in both ends. We're going to need to develop those skills and the benefits. A few more slides and then we open up for, yeah, this is something I'm also researching. I love it. There's kids who are launching amazing projects who have zero money, zero. And they make huge things. Michaela Olme, she's in the US from African origins. She was bitten or stung by a bee when she was 4. Parents told her, listen, Michaela, we know it's painful and you might get afraid, but before being afraid of bees forever, just try to understand them. So she researched a bit and she found out that the bees were more afraid than humans and they were just stinging just as a protection. She kind of fell in love with bees. She created a lemonade with honey and today she's one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in the US, 13 million USD business with 16 years. Elisa is in Brazil. She noticed that kids, babies first years, kids, they don't have school. There's no school. There's no system for the 1, 2, 3 years kids. Their life is lost. So she said, let's change that. Let's create a project. And she developed this company to train mothers and housewives to be teachers and first class. So she's developed an amazing network so that kids, young kids, toddlers, they they have some schooling and learn, and they don't miss that important foundation. And then Boyan, I think we all heard about Boyan. He created the ocean cleanup. The ocean cleanup. And he was 16, he went to Greece. He tried to do his first scuba diving. He saw more plastic than fishes. He said, I want to change that. So 3 kids, Elisa was a bit older, 24-year-olds, Boyan 16, Michaela 4, which are changing the world. I don't talk about Greta, but they're changing the world through projects with 0 resources from the beginning. So I think for me, these are the inspirations. So I've been always thinking that projects is the tool to change the world. So I came with this kind of quote. There are fewer low cost, because when you start, they're low cost. You don't need to make like Michael at 0. Ways of working more impactful, inclusive, because we are in about diversity here, motivating and inspiring, and being part of a project with a clear, ambitious goal, higher purpose. So it's not about the return on investment. It's about making impact and a clear fixed deadline. So with that, I think I want to finish so that we have time for, yeah, I see there's still 17 minutes. I want to finish on time. I know it's Thanksgiving in the US and people want to finish on time. So that's it, Enrique. A lot of ideas, a lot of provocative thinking, but I think the future is right if we know how to adapt to it.
Well, thank you, Antonio. As always, very inspiring. Yeah, I think we should leave the floor open for questions, which we can take either verbally or via the chat. So if anyone want to start?
Or questions or comments or disagreement. I'm not 100% right either, I think.
Alan is writing in the chat that he's waiting. He can't wait for the book.
Alan,
I would agree.
You're putting more pressure than I have now.
I would like to make a question, Antonio. Many thanks. Was quite insightful. I really loved it, and I find it inspiring. I have one question. One of the first slide, then you say that the role of the COO will fade away, and you compare also the classical hierarchy organization with a network organization. Where do you see the process organization in terms of this comparison?
The process organization, good point, Kilian. This is something that we learn. Process linked to operations and to quality and continuous improvement. So I think what you see, the process when they reach the maturity level, they tend to be automated. And I think that's where you see robots and automation coming. So I think that part is going to be more and more automated and outsourced, that you see that today quite often. And we still need to develop the process side on the change on the projects, which is what I'm trying to explain here is we need to have different approaches. We need to have different tools that we mix. So the process will be a bit much more agile and adaptive. I think adaptive, some principles, you will still need a checklist. A pilot uses a checklist. A surgeon uses a checklist, but it's just to make sure we're focused, that we know what we want. We've not been using checklists in the right way. So I think there's a need for some process, but the process should not be the purpose. The purpose should be the change that we're bringing to the stakeholders and the organization. Great question, Kilian. So yeah, good point to think about. Need to think about that more often.
Thank you. Great answer too. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Henrik, what do you think? You've been hearing a lot of experts, so while we get some questions.
Well, I think that what we have talked about initially, and I can also put that question here, is what do you see in terms of the development? Has COVID-19 helped this move towards change, or what do you see from your perspective as one of the impact from COVID-19?
Yeah, it's accelerated completely. One of the things with the COVID is that you see much more focus. So one thing that we always try to say is that let's have less projects, but more clear which one we work on. And today there's no doubt that companies were forced to say, well, we just drop everything and we do that and that project just to survive. So I think that has been very beneficial. You see much more time spent from the executives in these projects because is that like the only lifeline they have left. So you will see much more engagement, putting the resources much more faster and better allocation on the team side. So I think this has been an enormous lesson for what we've been always talking about, the importance of choosing less projects, the right projects, a bit like the iPhone, getting the right people behind, having the sponsorship from the top. So I do think that this is something we can all learn. I'm writing about that too. Because let's keep that focus, and let's keep that focus on projects to survive and then to thrive, to change your business model into the future.
We have a question here from Alan. Leadership seems to be a potential barrier, especially since a lot of PMOs fail according to reports. Are you advocating for another function like strategy implementation office? Question mark.
Alan, good to see you. Yes, it's been, I've been doing a bit of thinking about that, because across me, I came across many job titles where either project manager, then you see project leader, program leader, project director. So I try to kind of understand better what we mean with that. So what I've seen, and this is what I'm proposing, is that we need to focus on the project manager role. What are the skills that we need for being a project manager role? And then leadership is something that you would add. For example, a VP of marketing is not a PM, but they can be leaders as well. So leadership is more a set of competencies. And I think in project management, we've misused that. We've talked about leadership without really knowing what it means. It's just because it's more fancy. People like to be called project director or leader more than project manager. So what I'm trying to say is that let's get all the project management right, and then build the skills that you mentioned, Alan, about leadership, which is more the soft skills, the empathy, the emotional intelligence. These are things that we can all develop, the understanding of the business and how it links to strategy. I do think what you say is right. I'm promoting the strategy implementation office because of the PMO, as we know today, it's dead. It was built for hierarchies, and we don't need more hierarchies in the broader sense. Sometimes we need. So I think the role of the PMO, that central body, will shift towards the strategy for strategy implementation purposes. And then we'll have more agile PMOs or temporary PMOs to support specific projects, but we'll not have that central body. So part of the PMO will go into strategy implementation. Good question, Alan.
Anyone else?
Hey, Antonio, this is Ayrton Oliveira speaking.
Ayrton, hi.
How are you? One thing that intrigues me is the fact that I used to run operations before, and I get passionate about projects because it was unique, very different. How you see the transition that people doing a lot of years of project management and decide to run the business, right? To move. How do you see this transition, and how the project manager could be prepared for this change, right? Can you give more details? It's very intriguing to come back to run.
I think there's two sides. Great question, Ayrton. There's the massive amount of people who are going to start working in project-based or agile teams. I have a personal example working for BNP Paribas, people working 20 years in the credit risk department, hierarchy, maybe 7 levels before they reach the top, and suddenly BNP decides we're going agile. We don't need any more hierarchy, just 2 levels, and you all part of teams, and you're going to be part of tribes, and forget about your VP role of credit operator. Now you're a tribe, whatever. So it was very shocking for my friends. Say after 20 years, now I'm working in agile teams in a project. They gave me a big project, And I don't know anything about projects. I've been part of some projects, but I've never learned I talked to him after 3 months and he said, listen, Antonio, I really like this new job. I'm meeting new people. I'm not talking only with the credit risk people. I got a bit bored after 20 years. I'm meeting people from everywhere, from legal, from marketing, clients. It's very diverse. I'm learning. After 20 years, I'm learning something new. So that big bulk of people, when they change their mindset and they say, well, now you are not part of a structure, you're just part of a network and a floating world. It's a big one. It's a big one for many people. And then I think what I was saying, Arton, and to your question is, I still don't know why we stop after we've done something with a project. I still don't know. I think it comes from the engineering world where you were building a bridge and then of course, or a residence, but it doesn't make sense in some projects within your company. So if you're building, I don't know, a new internal organization, why do you run away? Run it. If you're building a new operating process, why don't you run away and run it? So I think it's more a question of daring, of breaking that glass ceiling or glass wall that we have been instructed to say, listen, I want to run it. I might need a bit of help, but there's no one who knows more this process than me or this tool than me. So it's more about daring. Ayrton, of course, with the daring, you take a risk, but you also take a big opportunity to learn different skills. Like you say, operations is very different. It's about, it's about consistency, it's about delivery, it's about quality, it's about you don't have margin for errors, while in projects you can mistakes and there's no problem. So I think this is something that is a great learning experience. And think about your process, everybody, your project that you're currently, and think, can you tell your boss, I want to run this when it's done? Maybe it's not the case, maybe it is the case, but just make the thinking, make that discussion. That will already be a step towards the right direction.
We have one
Thanks,
more question.
In China, when you look at Alibaba or Hire, or they do it, they expect you as a project leader. That's what I call end-to-end implementation. They expect that sometimes you come with the idea, let's build that new app. And the management team will say, okay, I'll give you 100,000, develop the app, you do the project, and then you're in charge of selling the app. So that's happening in more agile cultures like the Asian, Chinese, Korea, they from idea to running and making the business.
We have one more question here from Virai. How to develop a deliverable timetable or roadmap for ERP projects in an agile world? How is that possible, I guess, is also the question.
How do you develop a
timeline? Yeah, so how probably to develop a deliverable timeline or roadmap for ERP projects in an agile world.
How to develop a timetable on deliverables? I think, well, basically what I'm trying to say is that we don't need any more a deliverable timetable. I would say when we're going to start to use the tool, when are we going to start using that module? And if we set up an SAP, what were the benefits? Well, the benefits were maybe reduction of time, processing time, or time to market. So when are we going to start seeing that? When are we? I don't care too much about when the tool is open for everybody to input data. I think that's our internal kitchen. I think that you can use agile or traditional project management to define a bit that plan, but 95% your stakeholders, we want to know, when are we achieving the benefits? When are we starting to see any of what's promised at the beginning? I think that's the mindset that we need to build is, let's have that basis, but then let's focus almost solely on the benefits to share that, to understand it. There's an amazing project that I love, is the Sagrada Familia in Spain, Barcelona. It's 100 years late. 100 years, not 100 days, not 100 weeks, 100 years. Somebody cares? No, because they're making benefits. Every day there's tourists, not now with the COVID, but they make millions every year. So how can we make sure that we deliver something in terms of benefits much faster than what we used to in the past? And I think that's the bigger question that we need to find an answer.
Thank you. Any final questions? So I have one here.
There's a comment from Babak. Yeah, I do agree.
Yes, hi,
I
Antonio,
agree
and
with what you're
everybody.
saying.
This content comes from Dr. Robert Kiyosaki's book, Effective Project Management, that I really love, and also it stresses on what you said about not having a good plan and insisting on starting the project soon before everything is clear. And I've also seen such effects in construction projects where everybody is trying to start the project soon, and then it's in rework and in delays and many other problems that could have been vanished if we just have a good plan in place instead of starting the project soon.
Correct. Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not telling you there's a formula. There's no formula.
Yes.
Some projects are too early to start. Some projects might be good to start.
Yes.
And some projects need that agile approach. Some others need a bit more thorough planning and more elaboration at the beginning. So I think that's where we need to develop more competencies and knowing when to use a bit of technology too. So yeah, it's a great point.
But in either cases, it needs a solid understanding of different project management methodologies and know how to plan each one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question, great point there.
Good.
So it's time. We want to be punctual.
Yeah, exactly. So I will just then take over very briefly. Thank you, Antonia. And just want to show very briefly what we've talked about also here, that if you want to learn more, I'd also put a link in the chat. You can see that we have an online program which we, GERBUS Academy, have developed together with Antonia. It's going to start next year. Very briefly, we are talking about an online program with 3 half days where we get much more into the things that Antonia has been presenting today. So looking at what is the project economy, and look at and the second on what are the tools and how can you use them, how can you apply them, also in different roles. And then thirdly and finally look at what does it mean also for your strategy implementation. We have all the sessions described here, so you can read much more on our website. And as I said, I put the link in the chat. There's an early bird for registration until December 12th, 15%. So why not sign up now and know what you're going to do next year in this great program. I think that's all that we have here for now. I also wrote that you can send me or us an email if you want the slides. Some of you have already done that, so we will send the slides to you by tomorrow. And you can follow us also on LinkedIn to see other webinars coming up. And if you have any questions, also just either use LinkedIn or use the email address. I think that should be the best way to communicate. So from my side, thank you, Antonio. Once again, a great, interesting event on a, I think, very highly relevant topic, even now more than ever. And thank you to you all, wherever you are in the world. For those of you who are in Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And for everyone else, have a good rest day, and hope to see some of you back in February with Antonio when we start our online program. So thank you and take care, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Keep well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.